Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Yacht Crew Vlogs right here on Yachting International Radio. My name is Ria. I am your host, and today I'm really pleased to introduce Dr. Jeremy Kiszka. He is the Assistant Professor of the Marine Conservation Ecology Lab in Florida International University. How are you?
I'm good, and you?
Great. Thank you so much for coming on board today.
Of course.
Part of the reason that I sort of reached out to you was because we have something happening in and near the Strait of Gibraltar. We have a pod of orcas, and it's actually three male orcas, younger male orcas, accompanied by their mother, or at least that's what scientists are saying, that have been attacking. Some say attacking. I mean, the scientific community is quite confused about it all because this is not like traditional behavior in any way whatsoever. So some are saying it's three young males with their mothers. Others are saying we're not quite sure. Nobody really knows much about it, and they are investigating it. But in the meantime, Spain has literally said we do not want to have sailboats under a certain size in this area. But I wanted to talk about orcas just as they are. What affects orcas? Like, what kind of mammal are they? They're part of the dolphin family, and they're almost human.
They almost human. I don't know, but they are the largest member of the dolphin family. There's about 40 species of dolphins around the globe, and the killer whale or the orca is one of them. And what makes these animals really special is their size. Of course, it's the biggest dolphin. But it's also their feeding behavior and their pretty much the toughest of the toughest of marine predators in the ocean. There's nothing above killer whales, and they feed on the wide variety of different prey, from fish to squids, all the way up to blue whales, other dolphin species, humpback whales. They feed upon a wide range of prey. What's really special about them is that they distribute all over the world, from the poles to the tropics. There are some places where we can find them more easily than others. And what's also unique, they have so many unique traits, I would say. They form tight bonds, family groups around the matriarch, and calves can stay with their mother till they die, pretty much. So they form like really stable social units. And in many aspects of their behavior is unique. They adapt to new situations. They learn very quickly. But they're also really playful animals. And look at us. Sometimes humans are going to find ways to distract themselves, and there's not necessarily a function besides play. So when I've seen what is happening in Spain, and I my understanding is that the problem started, but then it went all the way. I mean, it happened off the coast of Portugal, and then right now I believe that these animals are seen mostly in Galicia, right? So that's, of course, I'm not studying these animals. I have colleagues working with these animals. I haven't talked to them yet. But I feel that it's a very unique situation for a unique species. So it's fascinating. Although for sailors, it has to be very frustrating.
Well, I mean, I've actually interviewed one captain that had a sort of a prolonged period of time under attack, as it were. And there's many people saying it wasn't an attack either. So once again, the scientific community is not coming. Well, they're still researching, of course. But he said it was it's a 3-hour sort of time frame where they were sort of stranded with no ability to move. They had to be rescued by the Coast Guard. And when they came to shore, they saw where there had literally been teeth marks in the hull of their boat. And they were fairly afraid. But this captain as well said, and he's been a captain for years, he's never seen, orcas behave this way. Traditionally, they've just been this very, very playful animal, and ones that come up and investigate. They're very curious as well.
No, they're extremely charismatic. Whenever you come across a group of killer whales, it's a moment of joy, of excitement. These animals can be pretty big. The males have a huge dorsal fin of up to 2 meters, like it's 6 feet tall. So it's no, it's and as you say, they investigate you, so it creates a very cool interaction. But in this case, and to sort of like jump in and try to understand what's going on. It's a very weird thing, and I don't remember seeing anything like this before, even for other species of dolphins and whales. I don't know exactly how many cases have been recorded right now, but my understanding is that it's several dozens of cases, which is very unique. And across like the Iberian peninsula. I mean, it's kind of crazy whenever you think about it. So I talked to other researchers about that, and we shared like very briefly some ideas. And of course, it would only be speculation. But killer whales can be very playful. They can be very curious, and they're very confident animals. Although sometimes whenever they're around people, they're going to be cautious. But overall, they know that they dominate any situation, and they do whatever they want, and they know that. And they also, I'm pretty sure that they know that we're quite vulnerable on the boat, especially a small boat. So it's very difficult to know why they can damage rudders or even seriously damage the hull. It's amazing, but I don't see that necessarily as an act of sort of aggression. These animals could be just fool around pretty much. And whenever you're a predator like the killer whale and you're a social species, well, you can engage in behaviors that will strengthen the relationship with other individuals. And these males, or whichever individuals they are, can do that to pretty much socialize and play. It might be just to play. Of course, these animals have big teeth. And whenever they play with their teeth, obviously there are consequences. But the fact that they repeatedly attack the hull and leave marks, or I've heard of some pretty serious damages, and the rudder. I mean, it might not necessarily again be just aggression. It might just be play. And play is a very important part of their behavior, and playing is important to maintain or strengthen the relationship between individuals, which is ultimately is critical for survival.
Now, are they not? I mean, I know in the Pacific Northwest off the coast of Canada and in Gibraltar, are they not currently endangered species?
Well, the population of the strait is actually, yes. It's a very small and endangered population exposed to a number of problems, and it includes prey depletion, fisheries, interactions. They have pretty high levels of contaminants in their body, which impairs reproduction of these species, and all across Europe and other places around the globe. Since they're at the top of the food web, these animals are actually impaired in terms of reproduction because of the high levels of pollutants that they have in their bodies. So that's obviously a problem. In other places, and you mentioned the Pacific Northwest, killer whales don't have enough food, especially salmon-eating killer whales don't have enough food to survive, which impairs reproduction. And the population right now of southern resident killer whales is decreasing. Has been decreasing for a while. Although we've seen recently some new birth, but honestly, these animals are in trouble in many places around the globe, and the population in the strait is no exception.
Are they? I guess I would imagine that they are literally competing with fishermen for their food source because in the Strait of Gibraltar, they eat the bluefish tuna, don't they?
The bluefin tuna, absolutely. And there are some, depredation problem where, killer whales take advantage of the fishermen to catch their prey. And yes, they definitely compete. I mean, the bluefin tuna is extremely valued for fisheries in the Strait of Gibraltar and in other places. So yes, they compete, and competition for prey is definitely another threat to these animals, specifically there.
So is there other factors within, like, is overfishing? Yes, obviously that's going to have an impact, but as well, in certain areas with a lot of boats that go through and a lot of traffic, is that something that disrupts their daily existence as well?
We don't know. I mean, we can, hypothesize. We don't really know what drives their behavior sometimes. But it's, prey depletion is probably a significant source of stress. And you might speculate that, killer whales might react to, vessels because they see them as competitors. But I don't see, or I'm unaware of any aggressive behavior of killer whales toward any type of other boat than sailboats. I actually would love to hear more about that. So, it doesn't really support that hypothesis, that, the prey sort of stress and prey depletion affects their behavior in a way that, they become aggressive. So I'm really very curious to know why they specifically target sailboats. Maybe because they're slower, or they perceive that. I mean, sometimes they can be pretty fast, but killer whales see them as less dangerous because the propellers are not necessarily on, and they're pretty silent. I don't even know how these whales can detect and find those sailboats and create all these damages, because it's a few animals involved in those sort of interactions. So it's definitely a mystery, and I honestly don't know. It's one of the mysteries of nature. There's a lot of things that we don't understand because there's no way we can spend enough time underwater with these animals and try to understand why they adopt certain behaviors. And that's the beauty of, I think the work that we do is sometimes we can understand things, but there's also a lot of mystery behind the behavior of whales and killer whales, particularly. So yeah, very hard. And even if we spend a whole lot of time trying to, collect information, it's going to be a whole lot of data that we can use, but it can be very challenging to understand why these whales are doing that.
Well, and I mean, they're very important to ocean life. And I on social media, I saw some people that, their first reaction was get rid of them. And for me, as an animal lover, that makes you sick to your stomach. This is their home. We are guests merely. What would you suggest to somebody who was found in that situation? How would you recommend they react? And I like your idea that you're calling it an interaction rather than attack. I like the interaction word.
Yeah, I wouldn't use the term of attack. I mean, why is it an attack? It is an interaction because it could be play, it could be, different things. So, an attack is, the interpretation of people because there's been some damage on, their property. And I understand the frustration, but as you said, this is the home of these animals. And, why would we have, the right to remove these animals, just to practice what we like, which is sailing in that case. No, we need to be able to coexist, and legally it's not it's going to be I mean, these species are protected. I'm just afraid that some people, retaliations exist and they are illegal, but they might occur, and I just hope that people are not going to try to arm these animals. Um, and what I would say to somebody who's experiencing that is, and I have to really put myself in that situation, but I know that sailors are very attached to their boat, and it's the relationship is it's a bond, it's a collaboration. I don't know how exactly they perceive that. But at the same time, can we get rid of animals that make the oceans like mysterious and fascinating? That's the first thing that I would say. And for now, what I would do is probably follow the recommendations from the government, is just avoid these areas. Hopefully, by collecting some information that I know some of my colleagues on the other side of the ocean are trying to collect, we're gonna understand a little bit better what's happening. But unfortunately, it's hard to tell me, okay, what would you do? Well, there's nothing really you can do whenever you're exposed to, a group of animals like, biting the rudder, and, biting the hull, or knocking on the hull. It's very difficult. I don't know how you would react. I don't even know how I would react. I know that I would be scared, for sure. It has to be scary. These animals are very powerful, and you want to make sure that you stay on board as well, because again, in the water, they're the masters. And I know that there's been a bunch of interactions at night as well, which has to enhance the anxiety that people face whenever they encounter these animals. For now, I would try to avoid these areas. Simply, I would just try to avoid that, because you don't want your boat to be damaged. And we need to better understand what's going on, and why these animals. Hopefully, we'll get some answers, and hopefully the scientists are going to be able to better understand what's happening there.
Well, I have to be honest, in defense of sailors in general, they are more than likely to be at one with the sea as well. It's more in line with the fishermen. I think that a lot of these pods actually have been harmed by fishermen in the past, and that there is some speculation in regards to why these three are acting the way they are. It's because of the fishermen in the past. Again, speculation only. But I can say sailors for sure do have a very, very deep respect for the sea, not only just their sailboat, but as well for the creatures living underneath the waters. So that is a wonderful thing. Dr. Jeremy Kiszka, thank you ever so much for your time, and perhaps we'll have you back again when there's a little bit more information out there that we can share with our viewers.
Anytime. That was a pleasure speaking with you.
Well, and if people want to, they can contribute to your Marine Conservation Ecology Lab as well, can they not?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and in the case, in this specific case, they can reach out to me. I have a number of colleagues working, on the other side of the Atlantic, working really hard to try to understand what's happening. And they can reach out to me first, and then I can redirect them to my colleagues. And because collecting information and reporting what's happening is really critical and important to understand what's actually happening.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again so much. This has been Dr. Jeremy Kiszka, Assistant Professor for Marine Conservation Ecology Lab out of Florida International University. We thank you so much for your time.
Of course. Bye.
My name is Ria. I have been your host. Please tune in again for another episode.